You just refreshed your screen for the 10th time, hoping for more likes. 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus offered a different path. He said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. If you seek the approval of others, you have already lost your own." This video is a journey into Stoic wisdom, where we will explore how letting go of the need for applause is the very key to building an unshakable core of self-respect. You will discover practical mental tools and powerful stories that reroute your worth from external opinions to your own inner virtue. We will uncover why a Roman senator celebrated his own false accusation and how a simple shift in perspective can disarm the most cutting criticism. What does true self-respect feel like when it no longer depends on anyone else's permission? The first step to self-respect is recognizing a fundamental Stoic truth about control. Our own minds are the only thing that truly belongs to us. Everything else, from our possessions to our reputations, exists outside that sacred inner citadel. The ancient teacher Epictetus opens his handbook with this very distinction. He says some things are up to us and some things are not. Our own judgments, our impulses, our desires and aversions, these are within our power. But our bodies, our property, our social standing, and how others perceive us, these are not entirely our own. They are subject to the whims of fortune and the free will of other people. Chasing after approval is like trying to command the wind. You can shout at the clouds, but the rain will fall when it pleases. You exhaust yourself fighting a battle you were never meant to win, all while neglecting the one territory you are meant to govern, your own character. Picture someone who has just sent a crucial project proposal to a client. They spend the rest of the day refreshing their email, their heart jumping with every notification. Their mood swings wildly between hope and dread, entirely tethered to a response they cannot force. This mental turbulence is the direct cost of investing your energy in the uncontrollable. You have handed the remote control to your inner peace over to someone else. So where in your own life are you pouring effort into trying to control another person's opinion of you? Is it a boss, a parent, a stranger on the internet? That energy, once reclaimed, becomes the raw material for building something far more durable. A Roman senator named Agrippinus once threw a party when he was put on trial. The charges against him were false, a political maneuver designed to ruin his reputation and his life. While any other person would have been frantically preparing a defense, scrambling to salvage their public image, Agrippinus sent out invitations for a gathering. When his friends arrived, anxious and bewildered, they found him calm and composed. He explained his reasoning. This trial was not a catastrophe. It was an opportunity. It was the chance to discover if his philosophy was just words he spoke or a truth he lived. The world was offering him the ultimate test of his character, and he was not going to refuse the challenge. He told his friends that his only concern was his own moral purpose, his inner virtue. Whether the jury declared him innocent or guilty was outside his control and therefore not his problem. His only job was to act with integrity and honor in the face of their judgment. This story, preserved by Epictetus, is not about a man who did not care. It is about a man who cared about the only thing that truly mattered, the state of his own soul. He valued his self-respect more than his public reputation. Think of a time you were unfairly criticized at work. Perhaps a colleague took credit for your idea, or a manager blamed you for a mistake that was not yours. The immediate gut reaction is to defend yourself, to correct the record, to make everyone see the truth. There is nothing wrong with that, but Agrippinus asks us a more profound question. Where is your focus? Is it entirely on managing their perception, on winning their approval, or is it on your own integrity? Can you perform your duties with excellence, treat others with kindness, and know your own truth, even if no one else ever acknowledges it? That shift in focus from the courtroom of public opinion to the quiet chamber of your own conscience is where unshakable self-respect is forged. So if your character was unfairly questioned tomorrow, where would your energy go? Would you spend it all on a campaign to change minds you cannot control, or would you invest it in the unwavering knowledge of who you know yourself to be? The Stoics believed we each possess an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind. This is not a physical place, but a mental and spiritual sanctuary built from your core principles. Its walls are made of your reasoned judgments and your commitment to living with virtue. When you fortify this inner space, the praise and scorn of the outside world simply echo against its ramparts, unable to shake the foundation of who you are. This is the true source of self-respect, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your own character, not from collecting the applause of others. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political intrigue and personal betrayal, constantly reminded himself of this power. He wrote, "People seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or in the mountains. But this is altogether unphilosophical when you can at any moment retreat into your own mind. Nowhere can a person find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own soul. This is the ultimate sanctuary. You carry it with you always." Imagine a musician who releases a song they poured their heart into. One critic writes a glowing review calling it a masterpiece. Another dismisses it as shallow noise. The old version of this musician would have been on an emotional roller coaster, elated by the praise and then crushed by the scorn, their entire sense of worth tied to the latest comment. But the musician who has built their inner citadel hears both opinions. They may consider the feedback thoughtfully, but their emotional core remains steady. They know the song was created with integrity and passion. They know their own effort and intent. That inner knowing, that unassailable truth, is their anchor. The external noise, whether flattering or harsh, simply cannot determine their self-worth. So take a moment and visualize your own inner fortress. What virtues form its strongest walls? Is it your honesty, your resilience, your compassion, your commitment to doing the right thing even when it is difficult? These are the materials that create a self-respect no one else can grant, and no one else can take away. What is the real cost of saying yes when you mean no, just to be liked? Every time you bend your own truth to win a moment of approval, you are making a small withdrawal from your account of self-respect. The Stoics called this a failure to live in accordance with your own nature and reason. To them, authenticity was not a modern buzzword. It was the fundamental requirement for a tranquil life. When you contort your opinions, hide your true preferences, or agree against your better judgment, you create a fracture between your inner self and your outer actions. You become a stranger to yourself, and that internal conflict is the very source of anxiety. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw this clearly. He wrote, "What is the fruit of these teachings? Only the most beautiful and fitting harvest of a well-ordered mind, true and lasting peace. The person who is puffed up by the applause of the crowd today is crushed by their boos tomorrow." They are adrift on a stormy sea with no anchor of their own. Their peace is entirely borrowed, and it can be repossessed at any moment. Consider someone who loves quiet evenings with a book, but who feels pressured to attend every loud party. They laugh at jokes they do not find funny. They nod along to opinions they deeply disagree with. They order the same drink as everyone else, not the one they truly want. Each of these tiny compromises seems insignificant on its own, but over time they create a profound inner conflict. This person returns home from these gatherings feeling hollow and exhausted, not because of the noise, but because of the silence they imposed upon their own soul. They have traded their authentic experience for a temporary sense of belonging, and the price is a growing sense of unease, a quiet resentment, and the slow erosion of their own identity. Can you recall a moment when you compromised a small value for a dose of approval? Perhaps you remained silent when you should have spoken up, or you pretended to enjoy something you did not, just to feel included. How did you feel afterward? That subtle pang of disappointment, that faint whisper of self-betrayal, is your own inner citadel signaling a breach in its walls. It is a reminder that every time you seek validation from outside, you are quietly abandoning the one person whose respect you need most, yourself. It is not what people say about you that hurts, but the story you tell yourself about what they say. This is the core of the Stoic insight into our emotional life. An opinion, a piece of criticism, even an insult, is just an external event. It is a sound wave in the air or pixels on a screen. It carries no inherent emotional weight. The pain, the anger, the anxiety, these are all generated inside of us the moment we give our assent to a particular interpretation of that event. We take a neutral impression and we weave a narrative around it, a story that often casts us as the victim or the fool. Epictetus put it with stunning clarity. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The thing itself is powerless until you grant it power through your judgment." Consider two employees receiving the exact same piece of constructive criticism from their manager. The first employee's internal narrative immediately spins a tale of personal failure. They think, "She thinks I am incompetent, I am going to be fired. Everyone will find out I am a fraud." This judgment, this story, is what causes the sinking feeling in their stomach and the defensive tone in their response. The second employee hears the same words. Their judgment, however, is different. They think, "This is useful information. My manager is investing in my growth. Here is a clear way I can improve my performance." The external event was identical, but the internal judgment determined whether the experience was one of distress or opportunity. The criticism itself was neutral. The power resided entirely in the meaning each person assigned to it. So where in your own life are you telling yourself a story that causes you pain? When you sense someone's disapproval, what is the automatic narrative that plays in your mind? Do you immediately leap to a conclusion that you are unlikable or that you have made a terrible mistake? The next time you feel that sting of social judgment, I want you to pause and question that automatic story. Is it the only possible interpretation, or is it just the loudest and most familiar one? By separating the raw event from the judgment you layer upon it, you reclaim the authority over your own peace. You begin to realize that the key to unshakable self-respect was never about controlling what others think, but about mastering what you choose to think about what they think. Stoics use a simple mental technique to disarm painful opinions, bare-bones description. This is the practice of stripping away the loaded language and emotional judgments we automatically add to events, leaving only the objective facts. It creates a crucial pause, a sliver of space between the external trigger and your internal reaction, a space where your freedom to choose your response lives. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. In his private writings, he constantly reminded himself to see things for what they are, stripped of the story we wrap them in. See the thing for what it is in its own nature, stripped of all symbolism, he would advise himself. He knew that our suffering is rarely in the event itself, but in the colorful, often catastrophic, narrative we instantly paint over it. Let us take a common social friction and apply this tool. The typical automatic thought might be, my friend completely ignored my text message, they are angry with me. That single sentence is not a fact, it is an entire novel of assumption and fear. The bare-bones description would sound more like this: I sent a text message. My friend has not replied in 12 hours, that is all. The first version is a story that triggers anxiety and self-doubt. The second version is a simple, neutral report of observable events. It does not assign motive, it does not predict the future, and most importantly, it does not attack your sense of worth. The power drains out of the situation because you have stopped feeding it with your fearful interpretation. You can apply this to almost any situation where you feel the sting of another person's opinion. Instead of thinking, my boss hated my presentation, you describe the facts. I presented my slides for 30 minutes. My boss did not smile and gave 3 suggestions for improvement. Instead of telling yourself that comment online destroyed my work, you state the objective reality. A stranger on the internet typed a sentence of criticism. This practice is not about denying your feelings. It is about preventing them from being hijacked by an unverified story. You are retraining your mind to separate the raw data of the world from the drama your ego loves to create. So think of a recent minor social friction that bothered you. It could be a sideways glance from a colleague, a short reply from a partner, or a silence where you expected a response. Now, in your own mind, replay the event. But this time, describe it using only the plain, observable facts, as if you were a camera recording the scene or a detective filing a report. What do you actually see and hear, devoid of all guesswork about intention or meaning? Notice how the emotional charge around the event begins to soften when you confine it to just the facts. This small act of mental discipline is a direct deposit into your account of self-respect. You are choosing to align your perception with reality, not with fear, and that is the mark of a mind that is finally coming home to itself. For the Stoic, there is only one thing that is genuinely good: your character. Your inner virtue, your moral excellence, this is the sole measure of a life well lived. Everything else that we typically chase after, wealth, health, and even our reputation, falls into a different category. The Stoics called these things preferred indifference. They have no true power to make you good or bad, and therefore your happiness must never depend on acquiring them. Since the applause of others is not a quality of your own character, it cannot be genuinely good. Chasing it is like running after a mirage in the desert. You exhaust yourself pursuing a phantom, all the while ignoring the real wellspring of water you carry within you. The Roman philosopher Seneca drove this point home. He wrote, "The happy life is to have a mind that is free, lofty, fearless, and steadfast, a mind that is placed beyond the reach of fear, beyond the reach of desire." That fortress of a mind is built solely on virtue. It does not crumble when praise is withheld, because it was never built from praise in the first place. Think of 2 neighbors. The first one sees a stray dog in a storm. She brings it inside, feeds it, and tries to find its owner, even though she is tired and it is an inconvenience. A few people see her and think she is foolish for the trouble. She acts with compassion because it is the right thing to do. Her virtue is its own reward. Now consider the second neighbor. He organizes a large charity fundraiser, but his primary focus is on the photo opportunities and the glowing mentions in the local paper. He acts for the applause. In the eyes of the world, the second neighbor may be celebrated, while the first is overlooked. But in the Stoic view, who is truly building a good life? The first person, acting with quiet virtue, strengthens her inner citadel regardless of any external recognition. The second, whose actions depend on applause, has built his house on sand. The next time the wind of public opinion shifts, he will have nothing solid to stand on. So what does virtue mean in your own daily actions, separate from any reward or recognition? Is it the patience you show a frustrated customer when no one is watching? Is it the honesty you exercise when you could easily get away with a lie? These small, invisible choices are the bricks and mortar of your character. They are the only possessions that are truly, unshakably yours. No figure embodied Stoic integrity like Cato the Younger, a man even his enemies respected. In the chaotic final days of the Roman Republic, as powerful men like Julius Caesar amassed power through popular appeal and political deals, Cato stood apart. He voted against laws he saw as unjust, even when the entire crowd was cheering for them. He spoke truths that offended the most influential people in Rome, and he lived by a strict moral code that made him seem rigid and difficult to many of his peers. His goal was not to be liked. It was to be consistent with his own unwavering principles of justice and virtue. For Cato, self-respect was not a feeling but an action. It was the daily practice of aligning his choices with his deepest convictions, regardless of the social or political cost. He became a living symbol of the Stoic ideal, so much so that later philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius would point to his life as a model of what it means to live with unshakable character. They admired a man whose inner compass was calibrated to true north, not to the shifting winds of public opinion. Think of a modern whistleblower who exposes corruption within a powerful corporation. They know the personal price will be immense. They will face legal battles, public scrutiny, and the loss of their career and colleagues. Many will call them a traitor. Yet they choose to speak the truth because their commitment to a higher principle, like justice or public safety, is more important to them than their comfort or reputation. They are not acting for fame, they are often acting against it. In that difficult choice, they build a self-respect that no court of public opinion can ever strip away. Their story echoes Cato's, proving that true integrity is often forged in the fire of unpopularity. So I ask you, what is a principle you hold that you would be willing to defend even if it meant losing popularity? Is it a commitment to honesty in a culture of little white lies? Is it a belief in fairness when it would be easier to look the other way? The answer to that question points directly to the core of your own unshakable self-respect. The less you need from others, the less power their opinions have over you. This principle extends far beyond social validation, reaching into the very heart of Stoic philosophy. The endless craving for approval is just one symptom of a deeper ailment, the belief that our well-being depends on things outside our control. The Stoics saw this clearly. Every time we desire a compliment, a promotion, or a higher social status, we are essentially handing over a piece of our inner peace. We are building our happiness on a foundation of fragile, borrowed things. But what happens when you systematically reduce your desires, when you practice wanting less from the world? You are not practicing deprivation. You are building a fortress of self-sufficiency. Your sense of worth, once scattered across 100 different opinions and possessions, begins to coalesce into a single, unshakable core. Epictetus offered a beautifully simple exercise to train this muscle. He advised his students to begin by using a cheap, earthenware cup. Cherish it while you drink from it, but remind yourself each day that it is just a cup. Then one day, deliberately let it fall and break. When it shatters, observe your own reaction. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to practice the art of non-disturbance, to witness a loss and consciously choose not to be devastated by it. You learn that your peace was never in the cup itself, but in your judgment about the cup. This same discipline applies to the social sphere. The approval of others is just a more fragile, intangible cup. We clutch it tightly, terrified of the silence that follows if we drop it. But what if you practiced letting it go? Consider the story of a young writer who decided to step back from social media for a month. Her initial reason was to focus on her craft, but the real transformation was internal. For the first week, she felt a phantom limb sensation, constantly reaching for her phone to check for notifications that were no longer there. She noticed a quiet anxiety, a fear of being forgotten. But as the days turned into weeks, that noise began to fade. The constant drip feed of external validation, the likes and comments she had come to rely on, was replaced by a new sound, the quiet hum of her own thoughts. Her motivation to write shifted. She was no longer crafting sentences designed to be shareable, but writing from a place of genuine curiosity and expression. Her self-worth, once a daily tally of digital applause, began to root itself in the simple act of creating something true. She was practicing the art of breaking the social cup and discovering that she was still whole, still valuable without its contents. This week, what is one social desire you can practice reducing? It does not have to be a dramatic exit from the digital world. It could be as simple as resisting the urge to share an accomplishment solely for the praise it might bring. Or perhaps it is choosing not to edit an opinion in a conversation to make it more palatable to the group. Identify one small hook that the opinion of others has in you and gently, deliberately work to loosen its hold. The Stoic concept of Amor Fati means not just accepting your social fate, but loving it. This goes far beyond simple tolerance. It is about embracing every instance of disapproval, every silent response, and every moment of social friction as a necessary and welcome part of your journey. Amor Fati is the deep, unwavering love for your own path, including every obstacle and critic placed upon it. The philosopher Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by the Stoics, captured this spirit perfectly. He wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. This is the ultimate declaration of independence from the need for approval. You are not just weathering the storm of other people's opinions, you are learning to love the rain for how it strengthens your roots." Imagine a software developer who pours his heart into a new application, only to have it rejected by a major investor. The initial sting is sharp. The old story of failure and inadequacy screams for attention. But what if he practices Amor Fati? He shifts his perspective. This rejection is not a catastrophe to be endured, it is a gift to be loved. It is the universe's way of forcing him to refine his idea, to question his assumptions, and to build something more resilient. He loves the rejection because it saved him from a path that was not quite right. A year later, that same developer has a breakthrough. He realizes his original concept was good, but it was aimed at the wrong audience. The rejection forced him to pivot, and his revised application finds a perfect home with a different group of users, leading to a success far more meaningful and aligned with his true skills. He looks back on that painful no not with resentment, but with genuine gratitude. It was the necessary friction that sanded down the rough edges of his ambition and revealed a truer form. That investor's disapproval was not a verdict on his worth. It was the training ground for his patience and persistence. So think of a recent moment where you felt the sting of social rejection. Perhaps a group conversation moved on without your input, or a proposal you were excited about was met with silence. Now, reframe that event through the lens of Amor Fati. What hidden benefit could it be offering you? Did it spare you from a commitment that would have drained your energy? Did it teach you something crucial about the people you are trying to please? Did it strengthen your resolve to speak your truth more clearly next time? Loving your fate in these small social moments is the final, master-level practice of letting go. It is the moment you stop seeing disapproval as an enemy and start welcoming it as the most rigorous and most loving teacher of your own unshakable character. That critical comment from your coworker holds a different weight when seen from the edge of the galaxy. The Stoics developed a powerful mental exercise called the view from above, a deliberate shift in perspective designed to shrink our anxieties down to their true size. Close your eyes for a moment and try this with me. Picture the specific situation that is bothering you, the frown on a face, the dismissive email. Now, in your mind, pull the camera back. See yourself in the room, then see the building, then the city from above. Keep going. See the curve of the earth, a beautiful blue and white marble hanging in the void. Now see our solar system with the sun as a distant star and our planet as a tiny, pale dot. Now see the Milky Way galaxy, a vast swirling disk of billions of stars, our sun just one among them. From this vantage point, where is that critical comment? Where is that person whose approval you crave? The entire drama of human social life is happening on a speck of dust in a forgotten corner of an unimaginably large cosmos. This is not meant to make our lives seem meaningless, but to make our worries about reputation seem manageable. Marcus Aurelius used this technique constantly to steady himself against the pressures of ruling an empire. He would write, "You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination. How small a part of the boundless abyss of time has been assigned to every man. Soon you will be forgotten, and all that you now see, and all those whose praise you now seek." He was not being morbid, he was being free. He was reminding himself that the sting of a senator's insult or the lure of public adoration were both fleeting illusions against the backdrop of eternity. Let us apply this to a modern moment. You walk out of a meeting where you felt humiliated. The heat of embarrassment is real. Your heart is pounding. Now apply the view from above. That meeting room is one of millions on the planet. The people in it with their opinions are tiny figures on a spinning world. 100 years from now, every single person in that room will be gone, and the memory of this specific afternoon will have vanished completely. The emotion you feel is valid, but its power over you is an illusion you grant it by focusing only on the close-up view. The slight has not changed the universe, it has only changed the story you are telling yourself in this fleeting moment. So take a deep breath and bring to mind that one social worry that feels so heavy right now. Now, in your mind, watch it shrink. Pull back from the feeling, see your city from the clouds, see the continent from space, see the silent, majestic dance of the planets. From that infinite silence, look back at your worry. Does it still demand all of your energy, all of your peace, or does it now seem like a small part of a much larger and far more beautiful picture? Stoics strengthen their resolve by rehearsing their worst social fears. This ancient mental drill is called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. While Seneca advised contemplating poverty, exile, and even death to build resilience against fortune's blows, the same principle applies with devastating effectiveness to the anxieties of our social world. You deliberately visualize the very scenarios your ego works so hard to avoid. Imagine walking into a team meeting and stating an opinion you know will be unpopular. In your mind, you see the confused glances, you hear the dismissive comments, you feel the room's warmth turning to cold silence. You are not doing this to be pessimistic. You are inoculating yourself against the shock of disapproval. By visiting this mental landscape in advance, you drain the moment of its surprise and its power. When your real voice speaks that difficult truth, the sting of their reaction is muted because you have already stood firm in that storm inside your own mind. This practice forces a crucial pre-commitment. You are deciding right now in a state of calm how you will act when the pressure is on. Your future self is no longer reacting from a place of panic, but executing a plan crafted from principle. You have already chosen integrity over approval, and that choice is no longer up for debate. So take the next 2 minutes, close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Vividly imagine a specific scenario where you risk losing someone's approval. Perhaps it is telling a family member a difficult truth or presenting an unconventional idea to a skeptical boss. Do not rush through it. Let the scene play out in detail. See the faces, hear the tone of voice, feel the initial clutch of anxiety in your chest, and then watch yourself in this mental rehearsal. See yourself breathing deeply, your posture steady. Hear your voice calm and clear, speaking your truth without aggression or apology. Witness yourself retaining your composure not because you are numb, but because your self-respect is anchored to something deeper than their reaction. You are watching your own character pass the test before it even happens. That pause button is the Stoic discipline of assent. This is the crucial mental habit of withholding your automatic agreement from every initial impression that pops into your head. An impression is not a fact. It is your mind's first, often flawed, interpretation of an event. The discipline of assent is the conscious choice to question that interpretation before you sign your name to it and accept it as truth. Epictetus gave his students incredibly clear instructions on this practice. He said, "Do not be carried away by the vividness of the impression, but say, 'Impression, wait for me a little. Let me see what you are and what you represent. Let me test you.' This is the moment you reclaim your sovereignty over your own mind. You are no longer a passive recipient of every negative thought, but an active gatekeeper, deciding which impressions are worthy of your belief and which are merely deceptive salesmen trying to sell you a story of inadequacy. Consider the automatic impression, 'I am a failure because my boss criticized one part of my project.' Without the discipline of assent, you immediately agree. You feel the shame, the defensiveness, the entire narrative of being incompetent crashes down. But when you press that pause button, you create space. You can now question the impression. You can ask, is this single piece of feedback truly a verdict on my entire professional worth? Does my boss's specific suggestion for improvement logically mean that I am a complete failure? The answer is almost always a resounding no. The initial impression is a gross exaggeration, a caricature of reality. By withholding your assent, you prevent that caricature from moving in and setting up shop in your mind. The next time you feel that familiar sting of criticism, I want you to practice this. Before the feeling sweeps you away, create a sliver of space. In that quiet moment, ask the impression to wait. What are you really? Is this thought a fact, or is it just a fearful story my ego is telling me? This small act of interrogation is how you stop external events from writing the script of your self-worth. You become the author, the editor, and the final authority on your own character. Socrates, a hero to the Stoics, chose hemlock over hypocrisy. Condemned to death by an Athenian jury for corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, he was given a clear way out. His friends had arranged his escape from prison. All he had to do was walk away from Athens and promise to stop asking his inconvenient questions. He refused. To him, that escape would have been a far greater sentence, a life sentence of betraying his own philosophical mission. He explained that the most important thing was not life, but the good life, a life lived well and justly. An unexamined life is not worth living, he declared. For Socrates, a single day of living in accordance with his conscience was worth more than 100 years of comfortable silence bought by abandoning his principles. His death was not a defeat, but the ultimate expression of his self-respect. The Stoics, especially Epictetus, returned to this story again and again. They saw in Socrates the perfect model of a man who held fast to what was within his power, his character, and his judgments, while letting go of what was not, including his own life and the approval of his fellow citizens. He drank the poison not as a broken man, but as a free one, utterly unshaken by the court's verdict because his inner court of reason had already acquitted him of any true wrongdoing. This story forces a profound and difficult question upon us, one that Socrates himself posed. Is it better to suffer wrong or to do wrong? In the context of our need for approval, this question becomes intensely personal. Is it better to suffer the social pain of someone's disapproval, or is it better to do the wrong thing, to compromise your own truth, just to avoid that pain? Every time you silence a genuine opinion to fit in, or you nod along with a statement you know is false, you are choosing, in a small way, to do wrong to your own conscience in order to avoid suffering the potential wrong of someone's negative judgment. You are answering Socrates' question by choosing to do wrong. Think of the modern scientist who publishes unpopular data on climate change, facing a storm of public backlash and industry-funded criticism. Or the employee who reports an ethical violation, knowing it will likely cost them their job and make them a pariah among their colleagues. These individuals are choosing to suffer wrong, to endure the slings and arrows of public outrage or professional ostracism, because they believe it is infinitely better than the alternative, which would be to do the wrong thing by staying silent. Their self-respect is built on the unshakable ground that their integrity is non-negotiable. So I put this Socratic challenge directly to you. Where in your life are you facing this exact choice? Is it better to suffer the temporary discomfort of speaking your truth, or to do the subtle wrong to your own soul by pretending to be someone you are not, just for a moment of approval? Your answer to that question in 1,000 small moments is what ultimately writes the story of your character. Instead of looking to others for approval, the Stoic looks to sage role models for guidance. This practice is not about creating a new source of external judgment, but about building an internal compass calibrated to virtue. The question shifts from, "What will they think of me?" to a far more powerful one, "What would a person of wisdom and integrity do in my situation?" You are no longer glancing sideways at your peers for cues, but looking upward to an ideal of character for direction. Marcus Aurelius begins his private journal, known today as his Meditations, not with grand philosophical statements, but with a humble and detailed list of the virtues he learned from the people in his life. He recalls his grandfather's reputation for integrity, his father's dignified character, his mother's piety and generosity, and his tutor's endurance of hardship. He actively gathered these qualities from his role models, collecting them like precious stones to build the foundation of his own soul. He was constructing an inner council of advisors, a personal pantheon of virtue to consult in moments of doubt or social pressure. Imagine a junior manager in a meeting where her team is pressured to fudge some numbers to make a quarterly report look better. The room is tense. Everyone seems to be nodding along, eager for the boss' approval. The old her would have remained silent, swallowing her discomfort to avoid rocking the boat, but she has been reading about the Stoics. In that critical moment, she does not ask herself what her colleagues want to hear. She asks a different question entirely. What would Marcus Aurelius do right now? The answer is not a mystery. He would value truth and justice over temporary comfort and corporate applause. He would speak not with aggression but with calm clarity, and so she finds her voice offering a respectful but firm alternative that maintains honesty. Her action is not for show, it is an emulation of a standard she has chosen to live by. So who sits on your own inner council? It does not have to be a famous Roman emperor. It could be a historical figure, a fictional character, a beloved grandparent, or even a public figure you have never met but deeply respect. What is the single most important virtue you see embodied in them that you wish to cultivate in yourself? Is it their courage, their unwavering honesty, their profound resilience in the face of loss? Naming that virtue and keeping that person's example close to your heart begins to rewire your own responses. You start to carry their strength within you, making the fleeting approval of the crowd feel insignificant by comparison. To be truly free from the need for approval, you must become indifferent to praise as well. This is the final and perhaps most difficult Stoic paradox. We understand why we should shrug off criticism, but letting go of applause feels like surrendering a reward we have earned. Yet the craving for praise is simply the other side of the same fragile coin. If you fear blame, you will inevitably chase its opposite, and in that chase, you are just as enslaved. Your self-worth remains tethered to something outside your command, something as fleeting as a summer breeze. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this truth during his military campaigns, surrounded by the cheers of his legions. He would write, "The applause of the crowd is a mere echo, a tinkling of cymbals. In the same way that you pay no mind to the chattering of birds, so too should you let the voices of praise and blame pass by without disturbing your inner citadel." He knew that the same public that chanted his name one day could call for his head the next. His peace could not depend on their fickle moods. Consider the story of a ceramic artist who spent a year perfecting a new collection. On opening night, a prestigious critic writes a glowing review calling her work a masterpiece. The old version of her would have been elated, her entire week made, her confidence soaring. But the artist who has internalized this Stoic principle reads the review with a quiet smile, the same smile she might offer a passing cloud. She appreciates that the critic enjoyed the work, but she does not internalize the praise as a measure of her worth. The following week, another prominent reviewer publishes a scathing critique, dismissing the same collection as derivative. The artist reads this one with the same detached calm. She considers if there is any useful feedback to extract, but she does not let the words sink into her soul and define her. Her focus remains on what was always within her control, the integrity of her creative process, the discipline of her craft, and the honesty of her expression. The rave review did not make her a good artist, and the scathing one cannot make her a bad one. She is anchored in her own evaluation of her effort and her virtue. So think back to a recent compliment you received. Perhaps someone praised your presentation, your outfit, or your kindness. Observe your own reaction carefully. Did your mood lift, your shoulders straighten? Did you feel a little more valuable, a little more seen? That momentary high is the hook. It is the feeling that makes us dependent. The Stoic exercise is to notice that feeling, to acknowledge it, and then to consciously let it go, just as you would release a handful of sand into the river. Your value does not increase with the praise, just as it does not decrease with the blame. It was there all along, waiting for you to stop looking for it in the eyes of everyone you meet. To toughen your resolve, Stoics practice seeking out minor social discomfort. This is the principle of voluntary discomfort, a training regimen for the soul. It is not about embracing misery, but about deliberately choosing small, manageable hardships to prove to yourself that you are stronger than your fears. By occasionally choosing to be misunderstood, to go without praise, or to stand out in a small way, you inoculate yourself against the dread of social rejection. You are building the muscle of self-reliance, showing your own mind that you can survive and even thrive without the constant drip of external validation. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus taught that philosophy must be practiced, not just discussed. He argued that enduring hardship by choice trains us to endure hardship by necessity. He even recommended his students occasionally eat simple food, wear plain clothing, and sleep on a hard bed. This was not about poverty for its own sake, but about breaking the chains of softness and dependency that make us vulnerable to the opinions of others. Cato the Younger, that unwavering model of integrity, took this a step further. In an era where Roman senators wore fine, white togas to display their status, Cato often appeared in public dressed in the simple, dark clothing of the common people, and he deliberately went barefoot regardless of the weather. He was not making a fashion statement. He was engaging in a continuous exercise of voluntary discomfort, reminding himself and everyone else that his worth was not woven into his garments. He was desensitizing himself to the stares and the whispers, proving to his own soul that he did not need their approval to feel like a man of dignity. So what does this look like in your own life? It begins with choosing one small, safe act that makes you slightly uncomfortable. It could be wearing an item of clothing you love but that is slightly unconventional, simply to practice feeling at ease while standing out. It could be resisting the urge to add a self-deprecating joke after you receive a genuine compliment, just sitting with the praise without diminishing it. Perhaps it is voicing a respectful minority opinion in a low-stakes conversation with friends, not to argue, but to practice the feeling of your viewpoint being in the minority. The goal is not to become a social pariah, but to experience the momentary friction of being different and to discover that the world does not end. That quiet realization that you are still whole and your value remains intact even without the group's nod of approval is a deposit of pure confidence into your inner citadel. So for the next 7 days, I challenge you to choose one tiny, voluntary act of social discomfort. What is one small hook that the fear of judgment has in you, and how can you gently, deliberately work to loosen its hold? When you see yourself as part of a single human family, the opinion of one member matters less. This is the Stoic principle of oikeiosis, the profound recognition that we are all connected by a shared capacity for reason and a common origin. We are not isolated islands competing for scraps of validation, but individual branches on the same great tree of humanity. Seeking the approval of one person or even one group is like a single leaf seeking sunlight only from the leaf beside it, ignoring the vast, life-giving sun that shines on the entire organism. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this thought to ground himself. He wrote in his private journal, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Your anxiety and your desperate need for a certain person to like you does not benefit the human community, and therefore it cannot truly benefit you. He saw his own role as a Roman emperor as one small function within a vast, interconnected system, and this perspective freed him from the petty concerns of personal popularity. This is not a call to cold detachment, but to a warmer, more expansive connection. It shifts your focus from "do they like me" to a more meaningful question: how can I contribute something of value here? Imagine walking into a large party where you know almost no one. The old, familiar social anxiety begins to creep in. You feel separate, an outsider scanning the room for signs of acceptance or rejection. Now apply the lens of oikeiosis. See the room not as a collection of judges, but as a gathering of your own human family. Every person in that room shares your fundamental capacity for joy, for fear, for hope. They all want to be happy just as you do. Some are confident, others are nervous, some are talking easily, others are hiding their own insecurities behind a smile. You are not an alien among them, you are one of them. Your goal is no longer to extract their approval, but to offer a simple, genuine human connection, a kind word, a listening ear, a moment of shared humanity. The pressure to perform evaporates, replaced by the quiet dignity of simply belonging to the same tribe. Can you recall a time you felt completely separate from a group, perhaps in a new school or at a professional conference where everyone else seemed to know each other? That feeling of isolation is a trick of the mind, a story you told yourself about being an outsider. Now try to reframe that memory. Look back and see each person in that scene not as a unified block against you, but as individual human beings, each with their own private struggles and hopes, each a fellow traveler. That person who seemed to ignore you was likely preoccupied with their own worries. The one who seemed dismissive might have been shy. When you see the group as a collection of individuals, all part of the same whole you belong to, the need for their collective stamp of approval loses its urgency. Your worth is not something this small fragment of the human family gets to vote on. It is a fact of your shared existence. The only place you can exercise virtue and build self-respect is right here in the present moment. Your anxiety about what someone said yesterday or your fear of a future rejection, these are phantom territories. They exist only as thoughts pulling you away from the one place where your power actually resides. The Stoics understood this deeply. Our character is not shaped in the abstract realm of memory or anticipation. It is forged in the concrete reality of our next choice, our next word, our very next breath. Seneca pleaded with his reader to embrace the now. He wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." You are arranging the things that are in fortune's control and abandoning those that are in your own. When you are consumed with how your actions will be perceived, you have abandoned the present, the only thing you truly own, for a future you cannot command. This mental time travel is where self-respect goes to die. Worrying about approval is always a trip into the past, replaying a critical comment, or a journey into the future, imagining a potential rejection. Both are illusions. The present moment, by contrast, is a sanctuary of pure action. It is the one space where you can act with integrity, regardless of any opinion. Picture a graphic designer working on a complex layout. The old version of her would be splitting her attention. Part of her mind is on the creative puzzle, but a larger, louder part is already in the future, imagining the client's reaction. Will they like it? Will they think it's clever or amateurish? This mental division drains her focus and infuses the work with a subtle desperation, a need to please that weakens the final product. But today, she practices this Stoic anchor. She brings her entire awareness to the color palette in front of her. She feels the texture of the stylus in her hand. She is fully immersed in the alignment of shapes, the harmony of the composition. Her only duty in this moment is to make this design as excellent as she can, according to her own professional standards and artistic integrity. The client's opinion belongs to tomorrow, a country she has not yet arrived in and may never visit. For now, her entire world is this screen, this task, this silent, focused engagement with her craft. In that undistracted state, she is not just designing, she is building self-respect with every deliberate click. Her worth is being affirmed not by a future compliment, but by the quality of her present moment attention. So wherever you are right now, I want you to try this. Let your awareness drop fully into your current activity. If you are listening, just listen. Feel the weight of your body in your chair. Notice the sounds around you without labeling them good or bad. If you are walking, feel the rhythm of your steps. For the next minute, gently release the story about what someone thought of you earlier or what they might think of you later. Those are just thoughts, clouds passing through the sky of your mind. Your reality is here, in this breath, in this sensory experience. This simple act of return is not an escape from life. It is the way you reclaim your life from the tyranny of opinion and plant the flag of your self-respect firmly in the only ground that is real, the eternal, ever-new present. Stoicism itself was born from a shipwreck that stripped Zeno of all his worldly possessions. A wealthy merchant from Cyprus, he was traveling with a cargo of precious purple dye when his vessel sank just off the coast of Athens. In a single afternoon, everything that defined his social standing, his wealth, his entire identity, was swallowed by the sea. He washed ashore with nothing but the clothes on his back. A man who had been defined by his cargo, his financial worth, and the approval of his peers now stood utterly alone, stripped of every external marker of success. This catastrophic loss, however, proved to be the making of him. With nothing left to lose, he wandered into an Athenian bookshop and began to read about Socrates. He discovered philosophy, and in doing so, he discovered a value that no storm could ever take from him. He later founded his own school of thought, which met at a painted porch or stoa poikile, giving Stoicism its name. His greatest failure became the very source of his purpose. The shipwreck was not his end, it was his brutal, necessary beginning. It forced him to ask a question we so often avoid: who am I when everything I lean on for status is gone? His answer was not found in the ruins of his old life, but in the unshakable territory of his own mind. What if your own shipwreck is not a disaster, but a liberation? Imagine a mid-level executive who has built their entire sense of worth on their job title and the respect of their colleagues. Then, a corporate restructuring eliminates their position. The initial shock is profound. They feel exposed, humiliated, and adrift. The identity they presented to the world has been revoked. This is a modern shipwreck. But in the quiet, painful space that follows, a new question emerges. If I am no longer the vice president of marketing, then who am I? The answer, as Zeno discovered, is not found in a new business card. It is found in the core qualities that no layoff can touch: their resilience in the face of setback, their capacity to learn a new skill, their patience with their family during a difficult time, their fundamental character. The job loss, while painful, forcibly detaches them from a source of external validation they had over-relied upon. It clears the ground, however brutally, for them to build a self-respect rooted in something far more durable. If the main source of your validation, whether it is your social media following, your relationship status, or your professional reputation, was suddenly swept away tomorrow, what would be left standing? What part of you would you be forced to rely on, not for applause, but for simple, unwavering self-regard? Your craving for a smooth, applause-filled life is the very source of your turmoil. Epictetus offers a surgical correction to this instinct, extending the dichotomy of control directly into the heart of our desires. He says our troubles begin the moment we misplace our wants, when we desperately desire things that are not within our power. Stoicism does not ask you to stop wanting. It teaches you to redirect your desires from fragile external outcomes to unshakable internal actions. You cannot desire to be approved of, as that is a verdict rendered in a courtroom you do not preside over. But you can absolutely desire to act with honor and wisdom, for that is a choice made in the private chamber of your own will. Epictetus put it with unforgettable force. He said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." This is the ultimate redirection of desire, to want the reality of the moment, with all its friction and potential for disapproval, as the perfect raw material for your virtue. You are not wishing for a smooth path, but for the strength and integrity to walk the path you are given. Think of two people preparing for the same important presentation. The first person's deepest desire is to give a perfect speech that everyone loves and applauds. Their entire emotional state is now hostage to an outcome they cannot force. They will be nervous, desperate for approval, and any hint of boredom or disagreement in the audience will feel like a personal failure. The second person has done the Stoic work. Their desire is not for universal acclaim. Their desire is to speak truthfully, to communicate their points with clarity and courage, and to remain composed regardless of the reaction. Their goal is the quality of their own action, not the quality of the audience's response. The first person is setting a trap for their own peace. The second is building a foundation for self-respect that no lukewarm reception can ever crack. So bring to mind one specific desire you are holding onto right now, a desire for a particular external outcome. Perhaps you desire for your project to be universally praised by your team. Or you desire for a specific person to finally recognize your worth and validate you. Now perform the Stoic pivot. Rephrase that desire. Shift it from the uncontrollable outcome to the virtuous action within your control. Instead of desiring their praise, desire to do your work with such excellence and integrity that you earn your own respect. Instead of desiring their validation, desire to act with such self-contained dignity that your worth becomes a fact you no longer need anyone to confirm. This is not a semantic trick. It is a fundamental rewiring of your aim, turning you from a beggar pleading for external rewards into an architect building a fortress of character from the inside out. When you stop performing for others, you discover the freedom of your own authentic voice. This liberation is not about rebellion, but about alignment. It is the profound experience of your outer words and actions finally matching your inner convictions, a state the Stoics called living in accordance with your nature. The teacher Musonius Rufus was direct on this point. He insisted that we must practice saying only what we truly believe and refusing to say what we do not believe, even in jest. Every time you voice an opinion that is genuinely yours or decline to echo a popular sentiment you find hollow, you are not just speaking, you are building self-respect brick by brick. You are declaring that your own judgment is the final authority on what deserves to be said. Consider the story of a man named Leo who decided to learn the piano in his 40s. For years, he had told himself it was a frivolous dream, something with no practical benefit that would impress no one, but the desire never left him. When he finally bought a keyboard, he made a pact with himself. He would not learn popular songs to play at parties. He would not strive for technical perfection to post impressive videos online. His only goal was to explore the sounds, to understand the emotion in the chords, and to play in a way that felt true to the quiet joy the instrument sparked in him. Some evenings his playing was clumsy and halting. Other times a simple melody would emerge that felt profoundly his own. He was not creating for an audience. He was having a conversation with himself, and in that conversation he was meeting a part of his own character he had never known. His self-respect grew not from mastering the piano, but from honoring the quiet impulse to begin. His authentic expression, however imperfect, became a source of unshakable inner strength. Where in your own life are you wearing a mask, even a small one, for the comfort of those around you? Is there a hobby you hide because it seems unimpressive, an opinion you swallow because it is unpopular, a style of clothing you avoid because it might draw a curious glance? Identify that one corner of your existence where you feel the friction between your true self and your performed self. What would one small, safe step toward authenticity look like in that area? It does not require a grand announcement. It might simply mean privately indulging that interest for 15 minutes, or allowing one honest sentence to pass your lips where you would normally offer a polite lie. That single step is not a performance for anyone else's approval. It is a quiet gift of dignity you give to yourself. Each night, the Stoic asks a simple but profound question about their day. Where did my actions truly come from? Were they guided by my own principles, or were they whispers for the approval of someone else? This nightly examination was a non-negotiable ritual for the philosopher Seneca. He wrote that he would interrogate his own soul before sleep. He asked, "What bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? In what way are you better?" His focus was not on what he had accomplished in the eyes of the world, but on the state of his own character. He was auditing his moral progress, checking for any leaks where his self-respect had drained out in search of external validation. This practice builds a deep and honest self-awareness, the kind that slowly rewires your default motivations. You begin to catch yourself in the act, noticing the subtle pull to please, and you strengthen the muscle of acting from your own core. Let us walk through a modern example of this review. Imagine you had a difficult conversation with a coworker earlier today. The old way of reviewing the event would be to judge it by the outcome. Did they agree with me? Did they walk away happy? Did I win the argument? The Stoic review asks entirely different questions. Did I speak with honesty and courage, even if my voice shook? Did I listen with patience and respect, even when I disagreed? Was my intention to serve the truth of the situation, or to make myself look smart and justified in their eyes? The outcome of that conversation, whether your coworker stormed off or thanked you, is in the category of things not up to you. It is a preferred indifferent. But your conduct during that exchange, your virtue, that was entirely your own responsibility. By judging your day on this internal scale, you stop measuring your worth by the reactions you provoked and start building it on the integrity you displayed. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to try this. Find a quiet moment and review just one significant interaction from your day. Ask yourself 2 questions. First, in this moment, where was I seeking a dose of approval or fearing disapproval? Second, where did I act from a genuine principle, a place of inner truth? Do not judge the answers, simply observe them with the calm curiosity of a scientist studying a fascinating specimen. This is not about self-criticism. It is about self-reclamation. Every time you identify a moment you acted for applause, you loosen its hold. Every time you recognize a choice you made from virtue, you deposit a brick of unshakable self-respect into the foundation of who you are. From your final moments, the applause of the crowd will sound like a distant whisper. The burning need you once felt for a colleague's nod of approval or a stranger's validation online will have evaporated completely, leaving behind only the quiet, unshakable record of the person you chose to be. This long view is the ultimate Stoic test for any action. Seneca, in his essay on the shortness of life, forces this perspective upon us. He writes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Life is long enough, and it has been given in sufficiently generous measure to allow the accomplishment of the very greatest things, if the whole of it is well invested. A life well invested is not one spent collecting trophies of social approval. It is a life where your days are currency spent on building a character of substance. Consider the legacy of a notoriously cruel emperor, someone like Caligula, whose name echoes through history solely for his excesses and his thirst for adulation. He commanded the applause of millions, but his memory is a monument to vice. Now, think of a simple school teacher from that same era, whose name is lost to history. She may never have received public acclaim, but she acted with patience, kindness, and a fierce dedication to her students' growth, in the silent ledger of a life well lived, whose existence carried more genuine weight. The emperor's reputation is a cautionary tale, while the teacher's virtue, though unrecorded, was its own enduring reward. Her self-respect was built in those small, daily acts of integrity, and that is a legacy that no history book can erase. So I invite you to pause here and do a brief but powerful exercise. Take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Write a single sentence that describes how you want to be remembered, but with one strict rule. You cannot mention your job title, your wealth, your accomplishments, or your possessions. Focus solely on your character. What single quality would define your essence in the minds of those who knew you best? Would it be your unwavering integrity, your profound compassion, your relentless courage? This sentence is not for anyone else to read. It is the blueprint for the inner citadel you are building right now with every choice you make. Individually, these Stoic tools are powerful. Together, they form an unbreakable chain. The dichotomy of control is the foundation, teaching you where to invest your energy. The discipline of assent is the gatekeeper, giving you the power to question every painful impression before you accept it as truth. Role models provide the blueprint for your character, while voluntary discomfort forges the resilience to live it out. Each practice reinforces the others, creating a self-sustaining feedback loop of inner strength. You are not just learning techniques, you are building an ecosystem of self-respect where every part supports the whole. Marcus Aurelius captured this integrated view of a philosophical life when he wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Your thoughts, your judgments, your assents, these are the threads you weave into the unshakable fabric of your character." Consider the person from the beginning, the one anxiously refreshing their screen for likes. Now, imagine them equipped with this entire toolkit. A critical comment appears. Instead of the old, visceral reaction, they pause. They apply the discipline of assent, questioning the automatic story that they are a failure. They remember the view from above, seeing the comment as a tiny event in a vast cosmos. They recall their role model, perhaps a Cato or a personal hero, and ask what that person of integrity would do. They recognize that the commenter's opinion is outside their control, and they consciously choose to reinvest their energy into the one thing they can command, their own virtuous response. They navigate the entire situation with a calm self-assurance that was previously unimaginable. This is not magic, it is the practical result of a system working in harmony. So as we near the end of this journey, I want you to turn the focus inward for a final moment. Of all the practices we have explored, which one or two resonated with you on a deeper level? Was it the mental freedom of the dichotomy of control, or the sharp clarity of the bare bones description? Perhaps it was the inspiring guidance of looking to sage role models, or the quiet power of anchoring yourself in the present moment. Do not feel you need to master them all at once. True growth begins with a single, focused commitment. Identify that one practice that speaks to your current struggle, and make a quiet promise to yourself to focus on it for the next week. This is how you begin to weave your own unbreakable chain. Unshakable self-respect is the quiet confidence that remains when you stop seeking applause and start honoring your own character. This entire journey has been about one fundamental shift, turning your gaze from the unpredictable court of public opinion to the sovereign territory of your own mind. We have walked through the Stoic distinction between what is within our power and what is not, understanding that our judgments and our virtues are our only true possessions. We have stood with Agrippinus as he celebrated his own trial, and we have learned from Cato that integrity often means standing alone. Through simple mental drills, from the bare bones description to the view from above, we have practiced disarming the sting of criticism and the lure of praise. The freedom you have been searching for was never in managing what others think, but in mastering what you choose to care about. Epictetus offers a final, liberating whisper: if you wish to be free, do not wish for anything that depends on other people. Your peace is found in that simple, profound surrender. So as we part ways for now, I leave you with one question to carry into your week. Which one relationship with approval will you consciously work to change? Is it the need for your parents' validation, the craving for your boss's praise, or the silent hope for likes from strangers? Choose one and apply the wisdom you have gathered here. If this path toward inner freedom resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations of Stoic wisdom, and I would be honored to hear your own insights in the comments below. What was the most impactful idea for you on this journey? Let us continue building a community where we support each other not in seeking approval, but in cultivating the unshakable self-respect that is every person's birthright.